Thank you for joining us today for this important discussion about supporting women in law enforcement. My name is Tina Hendrickson, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Joining me are three very impressive women who have distinguished careers in law enforcement. Gina Hawkins, Assistant Chief, is a graduate of FBI INA Session 252, and she's the president of the National Organization of Women Law Enforcement Executives, also known as NOLI. She has worked in law enforcement for over 35 years and is the Assistant Chief, Cobb County Sheriff's Office in Georgia. Gina also served as Chief of Police in Fayetteville, North Carolina from 2017 to 2023. I'd like to also introduce Julie Rodriguez. She's the graduate of FBI INA Session 280. She is the first Vice President of NOLI. Julie is a dedicated 28-year veteran of the Los Angeles Police Department in California and currently serves as captain in the Wilshire Division. And finally, we have Kathy Vargas. Kathy is a graduate of the 271 session of the FBI-NA. She's recently retired as the Director of Training for Virginia Beach Sheriff's Office in Virginia after 28 years in law enforcement. Currently, Kathy works with me at Off Duty Management. I would like to just let everybody know that this is supposed to be somewhat interactive. While you're muted, the chat is open, and you are free to put any question that comes up during the talk, and we will have answers by our three distinguished executives. So if you have a question, put it in there. We're also going to send a follow-up email that will have the question and answers that we do get for the call, as well as a lot of the organizations and how to get in touch with them that we're going to discuss on this call. Okay, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we often hear about leaders in any industry, in any place, achieving their success with the help of a mentor or a sponsor. I'd like to start our discussion here. Captain Rodriguez, what is the difference between a mentor and a sponsor?
So before I answer, I just want to say thank you to the FBI-NA for having us today, for ODM for having us, for the cooperation with NOLI and having Chief Hawkins and myself present. And I also want to thank the Los Angeles Women's Police Officers Association and the LAPD for allowing me to take time in this space to talk with all of you. I love talking about mentorship and sponsorship because they're different, but you have to have both. Assistant Chief Hawkins is a mentor to me when I need guidance or coaching or mentorship of like, what is my next path in my career? Or I'm going to be taking an interview. Can you help me do a mock oral? Can we talk about some of my answers? She can mentor me. In fact, I'm a mentor for women and men all over the United States, and I'm grateful for being able to have and help people have a seat at the table. But what Assistant Chief Hawkins cannot be for me is a sponsor. She is not in the space and in rooms where decisions are made about me. And so what you need to start looking at is for yourself in your leadership and management capacity, how do you mentor? What are you doing? And who are you sponsoring? And so what I mean for that is like when I want to be promoted to a captain too, we have 3 levels of captain. Chief Hawkins cannot give any recommendations to my leadership team, my chief of police, my assistant chiefs, to put me in that position. So it's important that I have relationships internally and I have sponsors that advocate for me when I'm not in those rooms. And so I would implore everybody in this space today, what are you doing internally to mentor the future of your organization? We need to talk about succession planning. We have a huge retention problem in this country. So what are you doing? How are you mentoring? And how are you sponsoring the next future leaders?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Captain Rodriguez. Captain Vargas. Oh, yes.
Tina, can I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
What Julie mentioned was perfect, but as women and executives get higher up, there is opportunity for sponsorship in things like executive boards or other companies and being a part of other associations or getting feedback, or even knowing, hey, I know someone great. I'm going to sponsor her and reach way across to the West Coast for an opportunity someplace else. So she's definitely correct. Internal going up, but as women and men think about sponsorship, you can look for women across the span of doing that. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Oh, great. Thank you. Captain Vargas, how did you find your mentors and sponsors when you were, newer in the industry?
So it's ironic because I've thought about this long and hard, right? I found I lived first with my own mentor. My husband was a big part in pushing me to go up for that supervisory role. I started young in law enforcement, and I often didn't see a connection with me being in that supervisory rank. And he asked me, why aren't you taking the corporal's test? Why aren't you going up for that? And I'm like, well, I can't be that female leader that's in my organization, because at that time our female leadership was very abrupt. They would yell at people in front of others, and they really didn't employ that leading with dignity and respect. And so I didn't see myself in that. And he really encouraged me, just because you see that doesn't mean you have to be that. You can be authentic to yourself. You can lead with compassion. You don't have to be that side, while still encouraging the part about holding people accountable and learning ways to, handle those hard, difficult, challenging conversations, and still doing it with dignity and respect. So that was a big part of me getting into this. And then as I climbed through the ranks, I found reaching out on the outside for mentorship was really helpful, right? It started in the FBI-NA. Beth Coleman with my EI class was a huge mentor and encourager to me. And I just, even when I would go through tough times, and we're going to hit on the failure piece in a little bit, it was nice to have that external person to reach out and kind of level how I was feeling, not just encourage how I was feeling, right? Let me go through those emotions. And at one point, I even reached out. I took an emotional intelligence assessment to learn how to use the EQ2 model. And one of the coaches there, I was in like this room full of these executive coaches who are doing this all the time, a little bit out of my league. And I reached out and I asked one of the coaches, Christy Geiger, I said, would you be willing to work with me and coach me? And she did, for free, by the way. She gave back to me, and I still talk to her. I still ask for feedback, because I think that's really critical as you go on. You don't stop growing, right? You keep going.
Exactly. Wow, that's great. Well, I have one question then. Does my mentor or sponsor, do they have to be female to sponsor me or to mentor me, or should they be?
I say absolutely not. I mean, I would love to have more female role models out there. I love what Julie and what Nolly does with Gina. We don't have that much of that in the space where I'm at on the East Coast. So I absolutely think that's a great resource. But I hear stories all the time. I mean, we've talked in our previous communications. There's so many active male mentors right now and sponsors that are doing it. I think we just need to get louder about it, and see more of it, activate that side. But definitely not. I think there's a lot of unique power partnerships that can be developed by reaching across the board, right? Not finding somebody that's alike you, similar to you, finding that opposite person to learn from, to grow from, because you can each share and grow in that journey. So I think they can come from anywhere. And if you're smart, you're really partnering up with somebody that you see as complete opposite, for me.
Great. Thank you. Anyone want to add anything to that? Okay. Chief Hawkins, can you tell us how we can find a mentor or a sponsor? Do I go looking for one, or do I wait for somebody to come to me?
Very good question. And to Kathy's point, remember, we're in a male-dominated profession, right? The fact that we're about to have the National Academies Conference starting this weekend, and the fact that when we attended NA, we were a small portion of the big group, right? but we also had organizations like Nolly, where you can find, if your organization, if your department is small, and you don't have what she had, like she doesn't have anyone to go ask, look for organizations or look for people who are good in their profession. Do not be shy. If you see someone knocking it out the park, just go ask them. If they're not available, they may know someone else to go provide to you as a mentor. So the biggest thing is to get rid of the shyness if you have it, and just go ask someone and ask, do you recommend someone? Nolly has a mentor program, just like other women's organizations that you can, once you're a member, we just implemented this year that we have access, you can opt in to have access to other members' information. Right? You can say anyone has, I'm an open book. You can call me, contact me, reach out to me. If I cannot help you, I may know someone, or I'm going to find someone to help you with your issues concerned based off of the size of your organizations, based off of the dilemmas you're facing, based off of your experience, and based off of your desires. That's what I'm going to try to find along the way. I did not know initially that I needed a mentor. I was very young, like Kathy was, coming in the organization. Thank goodness I had people who were wise men who understood that I was ambitious, that I was smart, but I was probably just a knucklehead at the same time. And they needed to help me get myself together. And I trusted them. That was the first thing. So those men said, look, I'm going to help you because it's my responsibility to be your mentor and bring up the future. And I trusted them because they were smart and they knew what they were doing. So I listened. And that first thing, one of the things they taught me was patience. And I had no patience. So they were like, I'm going to need you to slow down a little bit and understand their process of things. And that was the best thing. One, I got a mentor and didn't know I needed one, because mentors, leaders stepped up, and I really think is the obligation of a leader to be a mentor, even when they know it's work. You need to go seek out people that you know need guidance. So go look for it. Go look for people who are specialized in things that you really like, and then just ask around and join organizations like Nolly, LAPCOA, WIFL if you're federal, or any other organization.
Great. We do have a question. Somebody asked, I think you said a little bit how to ask someone to be your mentor or sponsor. This person said, what do you say? Do you just say, hey, I need a sponsor? I think one of the things you said was, do you know anybody who's available to sponsor me? Or do you know anyone who's available to mentor me? Because then that person can say, I'd be happy to.
Absolutely, Tina. I think that's a good point. Asking, being humble, having a little bit, narrow down what exactly you think you want to do, and then ask questions about, I want to do this X, Y, and Z, or I'm really focused on this opportunity in our profession. And then just ask leaders around you. But if you don't trust that, if you're thinking your agency is small, you don't want anyone to know what that might be a threat, look for the organizations and look outside in the area. I know leaders are always going to be giving, and they're always going to know the importance of helping. So just don't be afraid or shy. We all at one point were police recruits and knew nothing. So just remember that we were all at that point. And if you find someone who's harsh and abrupt, that's not the mentor you want anyway.
I agree.
Julie has something.
Julie's got something?
Yeah. So what I tell people is find, like what Miss Gina's saying, is find the job that you want. Like, let's say you want to be a sergeant. Go find a sergeant that you appreciate, that you value, and ask for a meeting. Ask for a 10-minute meeting. Even, anybody who's a captain that you really like, or a lieutenant. First of all, if they don't give you the 10-minute meeting, that's not your mentor. Okay. But have a list of questions of things that in terms of what you're looking for, how, your future, what are your short-term, what are your long-term goals, and set that up. And then a mentorship has to check in with you. So have this relationship with, okay, thank you for the information. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I need to do. We often talk about looking at your resume, and you need to have 3 things, right? You need to have some administrative experience, operational experience, and then investigative experience. So when you're looking at your resume and where you want to go find that person, ask for a 10-minute meeting, ask them some questions, and then check in with them and ask them to check in with you. And so that's one way to do it. And if that's not in your organization, then you get on LinkedIn and you start looking at people who have jobs or have a pathway, and you cold call them, right? Or send them an email. If they don't respond, that's not your person. So that would be some of my advice.
Thank you. All right, we're going to switch topics a little bit, if that's okay. There's something called a mother cop dilemma. Okay. So law enforcement, we know, is very demanding for anybody, but for women who are trying to move up the ranks and also have a family and children specifically, I don't know how you three did it. And that's what I like to talk about. So I'd like to start with Chief Hawkins. Can you tell us how you managed motherhood and work?
So I started young as an agency, within my agency. I have now a 33-year-old and a 23-year-old adult daughters. Yay, I've passed the point of gotten them to that point. But along the way, remember being in this profession for over 30-something years, the mindset of women, me not wanting anyone to say, you're asking for extra privileges or you're asking for accommodations. Back in the day was my first thought of never bringing up that issue that they need to know that I'm a mom. They need to know. But growing in the profession and realizing there's nothing to be ashamed of to ask for help. Having family is a man and woman concern. Men need to ask for support as well as for their family. There are many men who are single fathers trying to be in law enforcement. How did I do it? I had to have a network of friends and family, and you have to do people that you trust. And then it got to a point where I had to pay for that peace of mind. Literally, whether it be having to pay for someone to live in while I worked morning watch and take care of my daughter that I had to trust and have peace of mind to be able to patrol. And as I navigated and expanded on that, different opportunities, like going to NA, I had to fly, and I was single at the time. I had to fly my mother in to live with my youngest for 10 weeks to know that I have peace of mind. But you need a network of friends until this profession starts establishing good childcare facilities, and we make that part of the profession. I think we're hopefully moving along that way. You have to create trusting people around you to support your love of what you want to do, to support your purpose. And then eventually I had to start telling my daughters what I do and the why I do it. And they realize mom's going to be away, but she's doing it for a reason. But when times come up and I absolutely have to be, I didn't miss any games. I didn't miss any major events for my daughters. And they know that anytime they can call me, I'm available.
I think that's very important. Kathy, Chief Hawkins mentioned that being away for 10 weeks. Everyone in the NA knows that it's a 10-week commitment. And that's a long time for anybody. How did you manage 10 weeks away?
So 10 weeks away was a long time. Like I mentioned earlier, and I hope he's not listening right now because his head will get so big. My husband was he's always one of those people like, go do it, you know. But I did find that there were a lot of pieces I had to put in play. We didn't have family in the area, right? So you had to lean on, just like Gina was talking about, I had to make connections. My son was very active in baseball and sports at school. So I had to make connections with other parents to help pick up the slack, right? When I wasn't there, and realize that them eating out a lot, probably while I was gone, just had to ignore that. And there was also some unique conversations, right? I was so excited throughout my journey there. And oftentimes I'd plan on times to FaceTime and talk to them, ask them how their day was and all those things. I had to really restrain myself because I realized they're not as excited as I am about me being away. Probably sometimes, but they weren't always excited. And so it was more important for me to see how they were doing and what were their struggles, and giving my husband that time to vent about, my son not having his baseball gear ready or being late for something or whatever have you. That's kind of how, I survived that piece of it. I had another experience when they were even younger, and it was everything that Gina said. It's just using all your resources and just being mindful of when you're gone, who is picking up that piece, and being grateful, because it's an opportunity of a lifetime to go to the FBINA. And so if you ask, people are going to step up and help you. You just have to give up that control.
Yeah, exactly. Julie, mommy guilt, is there such a thing?
Yes. Yes. And you know what? What I love about mommy guilt is we put a lot of it on ourselves. When I talk to my husband about mommy guilt, he goes, "Well, why don't you just ask me for help?" It's like, God, that makes so much sense. So, I think the first thing that we have to do is as women, as men, as grandparents, as aunts, uncles, is boundary setting. I think if we set some healthy boundaries and tell our partners and our loved ones, "Hey, I need help. I need more help at home doing the dishes, making dinner, planning things, maybe paying the bills. I've been doing it a long time. Can you take that off my plate?" We don't really do that a lot, and we take on more and more responsibility, and we never share with our partners how we feel. I will say there's nothing wrong with when your babies are sick that they want their mommy. That is absolutely okay. So I think a lot of times we put it on ourselves. I will tell you, when I made lieutenant, my children were 2 and 4. The LAPD only sends lieutenants to the FBI National Academy. There was no way I was going to leave my husband with 2 small children for 10 weeks. He never asked me not to. I did that for myself. That was in my mind. What kind of mother would I be if I leave these young children? So I waited until they were 7 and 9. I was a lieutenant for 12 years. I passed up captain 5 times because I wanted to make sure that when I left, my kids did their own laundry, did the dishes, helped with food. I just didn't want to and I have a great partner. He's not in law enforcement. And I also tell young people, find the right partner, have some tough conversations before you choose to marry. And those are, some things I hope we're teaching this generation when we talk about the mentorship is don't use all your sick days, keep that. So the same with mommy guilt. I think we put that on ourselves. And as women, we need to start, and everybody, men too, start having conversations, start having some boundary setting so that you're not doing all of this by yourself. So that would be some of my advice.
That's great.
Can I add to mommy guilt?
Sure.
It is. I see the comments. It is absolutely real, and it will continue on, because we love our profession, but we love our families. It can extend to children and parents and families in that matter. But I think once you really start communicating with your family, your why, we're gonna do it. You're gonna do your best, right? I end up, because I was not eventually married, I had to pay a little bit of extra in order to make sure I had coverage for the family. But that mommy guilt, just like someone mentioned, it will continue until you are able to talk it out with your kids and your family. But I still wouldn't trade it. I'm glad I did everything that I did. And because at a certain point, I didn't promote until 10 years in. And that was, I knew, because I had a young daughter and I couldn't do certain things, but you navigate and you navigate through it, but it's okay. I'm sure other professions have the same guilt as well.
Yeah, that definitely is the case in business as well. Sometimes when people say, hey, here's this great idea, you can go for this promotion, it's the, yes, I want to do it right now. Or you think it's, no, I can't because I have the family. But sometimes it's not now. Not now. I can't do it now, but I can do it later. So don't block it out completely. It's just right now, like you said, 2, 3 years old. But when they're 5 and 7 and 9, yes. That's a
I
really good
love what
point.
Gina said, communicating with your children and saying, this is my role, this is my job, this is what fills my soul, my cup, my purpose, my passion. I think that's also very healthy for our children to see that we can succeed and have goals, and they might be delayed. I postponed childbirth for 15 years. I had on the job before I had children. I wanted to be a detective and a sergeant, failed a lot of tests. We'll get to that later in this webinar, but we make sacrifices, and it's okay to say, I'm happy with the sacrifices that I made. I have no ill will towards it. I wanted to promote, and I also wanted to have children, and I did it on my terms. And thankfully I was able to have children, but that's what a lot of young women are thinking about today. Is law enforcement a career I want to go into? We have recruitment problems in this country. And so we need to, as leaders, chiefs of police, assistant chiefs, what are you doing in your agency to show that you are supportive of women and that there are different job opportunities for them and advancement depending on where they're at in their careers and if they want to be a mom. And by the way, it's also okay not to be. We have to start having that conversation too, 100%.
Absolutely. We do have a comment. It looks like a Chief Rossi said the biggest issue he sees or she sees is I'm the chief of a town 17 miles west of Boston, and I struggle to retain women for that issue, for the issue of the motherhood and, how do I handle both? It's like they have a hard time keeping women for that reason. So Gina, what does law enforcement need to do to support working moms in law enforcement?
My true belief is, this webinar is for NA associates, right? Not just women associates. We are hoping to normalize the need for family support amongst everyone. So when I have my male officers or employees, making sure they understand the importance of their role, the importance of recognizing family and their kids, and that they play a huge role, and that they do not have to cringe or be ashamed when they ask for FMLA leave, when they don't have to cringe, when they have to go support their spouse who just is having a child or they're adopting a kid. Kathy and Julie had amazing spouses who supported them in this. So it's going to have to truly be normalized in the fact that we are people, we are human, we are law enforcement individuals that want to have families and want to expect leave, expect to take care of children, to attend doctor's visits, men and women. So when the men realize that's your job also, to make sure you take care of your child that was just born, utilize all your family medical leave, so that when the women come into play, you also empathize with that. So you don't have to hide the fact that you care about your children. You don't have to hide the fact that you want to be involved at the childbirth or want to be involved in taking care of them. Be proud of that. We're going to support you. And then when you're supporting it and it becomes normalized, then across the board, everyone starts getting supported and everyone starts getting accommodated for their needs in training and travel and things like that. I think it just has to be truly normalized across the profession.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Somebody just mentioned that they asked female officers if they'd be participating in the upcoming sergeant exam, and they said no, not until their children get older.
That's a hard. So even remind them this. Participation can, and Julie, I think Julie gonna comment on this one as well. Participation can be take the test, go through the process, even if you just want to learn the process. You can always say, no, I'm not going to take it at this time. But what you're going to gain is understanding the testing process, the type of questions, so that when you are ready, you have that little bit of experience and you're not just going off the code. But take it, the opportunity. You never know what might happen, but don't turn it down. But if you want to turn it down, that is still within your purview to turn it down because of your family. But take the test, read and learn so that the next time it comes back around, you're a little bit more well-versed in it.
Great. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit again. This is going to be about how men and women approach law enforcement opportunities differently. Just as you were saying, it kind of leads right into that. There are studies, I think, Julie, that say that they approach these things differently. So tell us about that.
So Hewlett-Packard did a study years ago where they looked at, there were 10 qualifications for a job. And a man would say, you know what, I have 6 or 7 of those qualifications, I'm going to apply. And a woman will say, I only have 9. I'm going to wait until I have all 10, and then I will apply. And so we see that all the time. I have openings for field training officer. We just did oral interviews last week. And about a month ago, I like to hang out at the gas pumps, get gas every day, even if I don't need it, just because the officers hang out and they come around and then we just chat. And there was a female officer that I really like. And I said, are you putting in for the field training spot? And she said, no, I don't have enough time. And I said, well, that's interesting because the qualification says you have to have 3 years patrol time to apply. And I said, I think you have like 6 or 7 years. She goes, yeah, but I really feel I need to have 10 years before I should be a training officer. And I said, did somebody tell you that? And she said, no, I've heard that, but that's kind of what I think in my mind. And I said, but don't you also have prior law enforcement from another department? And she said, yes, 6. And I said, so what's interesting, and then Harvard Business Review, and I just pulled this up because I want to quote it, did a study after that. And one of the things said for a woman, reasoning why she didn't apply, I didn't think they would hire me since I didn't meet the qualifications, and I didn't want to put myself out there if I was likely to fail. And then another one says, what held me back from applying was not the mistaken perception about myself, but the mistaken perception about the hiring process. So I think what we need to understand is those 10 qualifications are not that you have to have all 10, it's that you should have some of these, right? And so we need to change our mindset in looking at job opportunities and advancement. And this is why it's helpful to have a mentor. A lot of times when you tap someone on the shoulder, like we have rifle school. So I'll say, hey, anybody want to go to rifle school? And I'll see some people not raise their hands, men and women. And I go, why didn't you raise your hand? You'd be great at that. And then they would go, oh, you think so? And then they sign up. So look at my own career. Most of my mentors have been men. They saw something in me and gave me some of the confidence to put myself forward. And so I think we need to really start having these conversations that the qualifications are a guideline. And yes, you should meet most of them. But we need to know that we are capable and qualified to go for it. And if we don't try, we've already failed, is my feeling on it.
Wow. Yeah. How have you, all of you, each of you, how have you handled failure on your journey? And how did you overcome it? Because everybody fails. Julie, you can start because I know you have a great story about that.
Y'all, my purpose now is to help people have a seat at the table and promote, because I failed every test I had ever taken. I failed field training officer test. I failed detective, sergeant, and lieutenant. I failed them all. And then when I eventually did pass, because I had a lot of help with a lot of people who had been successful, I bombed interviews. Just bombed them. Dry mouth where you couldn't speak. Your ears are so red because you're nervous. I was just horrible. And so what I learned from that is, to pay it forward. And so that is really my purpose now, is to help people promote, help people with the interview process, and teach them how to answer questions, how to provide emotional intelligence. I'm Beth Coleman trained at the NA, and using that diversity of thought and our storytelling and our experiences to help us forward. So failure is a gift. It really is. And I know that most women, when we talk about our successes, we talk about our failures, because if we didn't have those and we didn't put ourselves out there, even when we think maybe we weren't going to get it, especially as what Chief said, yeah, you might want to have a baby, great, but you can still have a baby and promote. So don't put those barriers on yourself. Failure is good. Keep trying, keep saying yes. And as leaders, go tap people on the shoulder who may not think that they're good enough or great enough or worried about failure. We got succession planning is important. Retention in this profession is important. We are losing years of experience. People are retiring way earlier than they normally would. And we don't want all of that experience to walk out the door without, having them and their knowledge contribute to our younger officers.
Great. That is really awesome. So, Kathy, failure. Did it happen? How did you handle it?
Oh, just like Julie, every single time I went up for promotion or sometimes even put in for a division, it would happen. And I would say in the beginning, I took it really rough. I still, at today, present Kathy, still can struggle boss sometimes. It's like a journey, right? I go through. But I think you said something really key, Tina. When the space between trying, failing, and then getting up and going again and trying again is where all your growth and learning happens. And so maybe when you look at this as, I didn't get that yet, I'm not ready for that yet. I oftentimes really suggest to people that I mentored over the years is to really reflect, like let yourself go through those emotions, have your little feelings, try not to compare yourself. Those never go far, right? Like, oh, Julie made it and I didn't, and I didn't think she's good at this. That is not going to get you. It's not a healthy situation. So, try to work on venting to a trusted friend. You don't want things getting out, right? Just venting about how you feel and work on yourself. Don't go down that rabbit hole, but focus on bettering myself. Really reach out, get feedback. What could I do better, right? We talked about that a little bit ago about knowing where are your blind spots, and then partnering and asking for help from someone else. If you're weak in public speaking, then ask somebody, I want to get better. What do you suggest? Should I take this class? Should I do this? Put yourself out there and really expose those pieces. And I also found that sometimes when those doors were shut, maybe that wasn't a good position for me, right? Sometimes you really have to self-evaluate and go, that just wasn't where I was supposed to be at that time. So that's where I kind of go when it failed 100 times. Yes.
Well, thank you. Chief Hawkins, what about
So,
you?
so Tina, although we're using the terminology fail, I'm going to keep it with it and say we're going to fail forward, right? And what that means to me and what I've evolved to being. There's very few things at this stage and probably for a while now that I think it's a failure. To me, it's going to be because I'm going to do my best to try to learn and prepare for the assignment or the task, because I always want to always be self-evaluating, and I always want to take ownership in what is the issue, what is the problem, it's going to and how do I want to accomplish it. So we've talked about the testing and promotional, but this can be everyday duty, right? Everyday duty. If we're focused on ourselves and our lives and what we do for family and for work, we're going to do our best and try our best. And then when we recognize that we didn't do our best, we need to own it. When I went back to get my master's and my first class, I was a little anxious because it'd been a minute since I've been to school. I was avoiding it. And it was an ethics class, and I had a writing assignment, and I turned it in. And that paper came back so red with ink. That professor just lit me up. I was in borderline tears, right? I was like, oh my gosh, what in the world? And then I thought I wrote so well, just all the craziness, right? And then I had to take a step back and said, did you really do your best on this assignment? Did you try to rush it? Could you have done better? And after I did that, I was like, I'm right. You're right. I didn't give it my best. I thought I could halfway. No, give it your best and learn from that. One of my favorite books is Extreme Ownership. When you're always self-reflecting and you're always saying, how can you help others? And what are you doing? What am I doing in order to facilitate that? Not making excuses. Then those failures don't become failures. They become lessons on, oh, didn't quite hit the mark. Why didn't I hit the mark? And what else can I do to make it better? Or how can I help someone else out? So failing forward is going to be huge, but not being afraid And not being afraid to say, I wasn't perfect, because none of us are perfect, but being eager to say, how can I get it done with the research, with the support, with the collaboration? So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. You know, one of the big mentor, I had a symposium, and it's called The Women in the Arena. The Women in the Arena is who we are, because not everybody can do it. Go look it up. Look up the Women Arena. It's not going to be successful all the time, but daggone it, you're in it, and just keep going. So
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. All right. I'm going to go on to one more. How do you think agencies today are preparing women for leadership? Gina.
So this is truly going to be dependent on the leader of that organization and who they are and what they stand for. And if it is a true leader, they're preparing the entire organization, the entire diverse organization they have, or trying to make sure they're having all different thoughts to make themselves better. Because when they realize their employee needs access to resources, education, and succession planning, it is going to cover women. But if the leader is not recognizing that women have different challenges, that women are going to self-doubt, that women they're not training themselves to get exposed to those opportunities. Just the same way as I'm going to look up if my organization is diverse of a let's say, for example, I have a lot of people from the Polynesian Islands as part of my organization. I'm going to research that culture to say, okay, what do they need? How do they understand? Because I'm not familiar with it, to give them the needs that they need to be successful in their organization. So to me, I think the leader is going to have to be open-minded, and women are going to have to use their voice a little bit more and reach out and speak up and not be afraid to speak up. You have laws that protect you. I know it's a challenge to say, how much am I going to put myself out there because I have to live in this organization? But you also have other women to support you and helping you navigate through that. So agencies are really going to have to truly research, recognize the difference in their organizations, and especially when they see women, just ask the question of how do they feel? Is there anything else that can make them feel more supported in this and to do their job better?
That's the question I had, is how do women find support within their organization, Julie, if there are no other women? They're the only woman there, and we see it a lot. I'm the first. I'm the first one, and they're all looking at me funny. What do I do? How do I ask for that? And who's going to give it to me?
Yeah, and I think that the challenges obviously are different. So it is nice to have a female that you can talk to. And if you are a party of one, webinars like this, there's also free webinars with extreme ownership that Chief talked about. And there's also LinkedIn, which is how I've met many people. They reach out to me, and I had a female canine officer from another state, and she didn't have anyone to talk to, and she asked me some advice about navigating pregnancy. She just got her dog, but her and her husband wanted to start having a family, and we talked about that, and we talked about what that looks like. For women, we could have a jacket. Same with men, but you worry about what that would look like in the rest of your career, and if one decision today would affect it. So, I think that there are affinity organizations across this country. There's IACP, there's NALI, there's LAPOA. There's one called Willie, which I'm a part of in the state of California. It's with the California Police Officers Association. It's called Women Leaders in Law Enforcement. There are ways that you can connect with other women. I will say that if you're the only woman in your agency, what do the other agencies close by look like? What does that look like? Does your state have a conference that you can go to where you can find other women to collaborate with? There's a great saying that we have called "Save a seat for a sister." Chief Sylvia Moyer kind of talks about that when her and Kristen Zeman go on speaking engagements, where you save a seat for a sister in the room, and so that you can collaborate and talk about our challenges. This isn't to be excluding of men. Men are our support and our teammates, but there are some challenges that it's nice to have a conversation with another woman who can relate, particularly when it comes to lactation rights, FMLA rights, light duty when you want to come back to work when you had a baby, or what if you have a baby early and you've used all your sick time. There are some really, challenging things that are happening with women that, now that we're in the workforce of law enforcement, that we need to talk about. So I think you just seek them out, you find them through affinity organizations, webinars, LinkedIn. Those are some good options for everyone.
Great. So we've already mentioned a couple of organizations. We've had a couple of questions about some of them to help support women in law enforcement. And I'd like to talk more about these initiatives and organizations. Many of the attendings may or may not be familiar with them. We're basically right now, whoever's on the call, we've got command staff looking for how do I help? Let's start with the 30 by 30 initiative. And I'd like to start with Gina. Tell us what that is, and then how can agencies get involved and learn more?
So just off the forefront, 30 by 30 initiative, that is the website they can go to. It's called the 30 by 30 initiative.org. But basically, let me share a little bit about the goal of 30 by 30 is to improve policing for everyone, not just women. Shocker. Shocker that women are going to think about how to make sure everybody is inclusive and better. The 30 by 30, once again, it's an initiative to improve policing for everyone, not just women. It's also about ensuring assessments for hiring, promotion, and training opportunities are objective. We've just had discussions talking about how women go over and above and before they're able, and then sometimes we still don't get chosen, picked, or hired, right? So it's also, remember, about ensuring assessments for hiring, promotion, and training opportunities are objective. So if they're objective, that's going to cover men and women, right? The process is objective. 30 by 30 is also about reducing the biases and removing barriers that exist. Is about examining strategies and policies, right? It's also about reassessing the culture of this male-dominated profession of policing. Really reassessing it. We're all up in challenges of hiring, who wants to be in the profession. It's really about reassessing that culture. Let me tell you what it's not. It is not tokenism. It is definitely not, the organization is not about lowering their standards or removing men from the profession. So often they think it's, oh, you're just advocating for just this, get this one woman in, or you're going to lower standards. That is not what the organization is about at all. But it is also about ensuring the unique assets that women have are met and are even heard. So 30 by 30 also has the goal. The goal is to try to get each organization have 30% representation of women by the year 2030. You think that's so long, that's so far out, it's not as right around the corner. But if you think about it, for decades, we've been at that same percentage of just 13% of women in this profession. So that's what this is about. People really being intentional about supporting and being inclusive. So let me see what else. I'm not forgetting anything. If you go to the website of 30 by 30 initiative.org, you're going to find all the details, and you're going to find support on how to implement and think about strategies. But remember what it's not about. It's not about tokenism. It's not about lowering standards, and it's not about removing men. It is truly about improving policing for everyone and really evaluating and strategizing and looking at policies that exist that have put up barriers for women and others to be a part of policing.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm also going to throw in NAWLI, because you're the president of NAWLI, and Julie is the first vice president. So tell us about NAWLI. What is it? Why should we be involved? Why should agencies send women to be a part, and should men come to NOLI events? Oh, Gina, I think
Once
you're
again,
muted. There you go.
once again, the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives, NALE, is inclusive. So men, please, you can also become a member. Our NALE's vision is to serve and further the interests of women who are and aspire to be executives in law enforcement through lead, inspiring, and mentoring. So men, although you may not have been a woman executive, you can be an advocate for not only your employees, but the women who work with you. So NALE really is only been in existence a little over 26 years. You don't have to be an executive to be a member. You don't have to be a woman to be a member, but it's definitely, we provide training, we provide mentorship, we provide a reference to be in this position. As you know, executives in this profession for women is few and far between. So over 26 years ago, it was a group of women who was at the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference. They met up because they were so few and far between to say, how can we support each other? How can we face the challenges when you reach this level that others do not have? Because as you promote along the way, that sorority gets smaller and smaller. So how can you support and understand the challenges that we face all the time? So that's what NALE is about. And all you have to do is go to nale.org and find a website to become a member and to find resources. And like I said before, we've also opted in for if you want to become a member, you can also have connections and have access to training and have access to other women in this profession to ask questions and to get support. Let me say this one thing. The reason why I became an even bigger advocate for NALE is because I came from a large agency, right? But when I encountered women who were the one in their organization or by themselves, my heart just broke down because I can't even imagine their challenges. And it's, for me, they were even more inspirational that they are by themselves doing it. How amazing is that? And all you need is help from someone you may not know, and I'm here to help. So that's why I became an even bigger advocate, because out of 18,000 agencies, the majority of them are small or mid-sized. There are many women who might be less than 5 people in their entire organization, and they do not know. And that's an awful position to be in. So trying to be accessible for them is another reason why I became a strong advocate and want to be a leader in NALE. So.
Thank you. Julie, you want to add anything about NALE?
So I was a board member for 4 or 5 years with the Los Angeles Women's Police Officers Association. It's called LAPOA. We're one of the oldest women's affinity organizations in the country. We'll be celebrating our 100th year. We were created in 1925 by one of the first female officers, Alice Stebbin Wells. And, we've had a heck of a fight in Los Angeles. We've had to file lawsuits because there was a time in the 80s where a woman couldn't even promote to sergeant. And so, we've been fighting good fights for a long time. For LAPD, we have 1,800 women, and I've been a voice for them. And one of the reasons why I joined NALE and then later ran for the board is because I had been helping, thousands of women in Los Angeles and California. And I felt I had a responsibility to help women all over this country. And just like Chief Hawkins said, having a voice and being able to use it and having, the name of the Los Angeles Police Department or LAPOA or NALE behind it certainly gives credibility. We have a lot of women in this country where they go and they tell their boss they're pregnant. And this happened 2 months ago, and she was assigned home. And when she called me, I said, is it home with pay? And she said, I don't know. I'm the first ever to get pregnant in my department. And I said, okay, well, let's go let me research your state. Let me research your laws. So now when you go back, you're going to have the information that you need. And what I tell people is you have to have a plan. So if you know you're pregnant before you go to your boss, what job opportunities are there available to you? I love putting women in detectives. I have them start working cases. They're away from the public view. They're not at the front desk. They're not in patrol. And I put them in a light duty capacity, obviously for safety. And now they're building their resume, because when they go for the detective exam, they could say, I was a detective trainee handling cases. There's a couple things we've done with LAPOA that I would love for you all to pass on to your leadership team. Number one, we provide maternity uniforms for women free of charge in our organization, and we are visible. So we're on social media. LAPOA is, so is NOLI. I truly believe if you see it, you can achieve it. The more we put women in uniform, then young women in the community, especially if you're pregnant in uniform, wow, it's going to tell young women, hey, I never thought that I could be pregnant as a cop. What great advertisement for recruitment. The other thing we passed recently was lead-free ammunition policy. So if you have cancer, if you're battling from cancer, if you're a cancer survivor, if you're lactating, if you're, planning on getting pregnant and you're taking hormone therapy or whatever it is, once a month you can go, one day is established for lead-free ammunition. And, Chief Moore, now retired, but he was one of the early on chiefs that signed on by 30 by 30. And so what Chief was saying is that if you are the leader of your organization, you need to be signing on to 30 by 30. You need to be saying that this is important, that 30% of our department is women, or at least try to get to that. And I will say, and I know every woman I know says the same, we want qualified applicants. So, we don't want to lower standards. We want qualified female applicants, just like qualified male applicants. So there are some things you can do if you don't have an affinity organization and you want to start one. Party of one, it only takes one person. Send a mass email out to your department. We're looking for mentors. We're looking for peer support, whatever you want to call it. Start getting a list of people, and then you start, kind of branching out to see what people, what their strengths are and what they want to mentor or help with. So those are some ideas that hopefully, spark some interest in all of you.
Great. Thank you, Gina. Sorry, Julie. Thank you,
That's
Julie.
okay.
I just wanted to say we were kind of at the end of our time together. I know it's like a whole hour. I wanted to thank our panelists for taking the time out of their day to help us. And there have been a lot of chatting. We will make sure to follow up with these questions and answers, and all of these organizations will be in a resource guide that we're going to send you after. NOLI will be at the FBINA conference this weekend. So if you want to know more from your agency, if you want to send people, they will be there. They have a booth. Off-duty management also has a booth too. And so I think we're telling people to bring bring your group, and we'll take your picture. There's a little contest, I think, going on too. But I would like to thank the FBINA and ODM for their partnership and working together to bring this important discussion to you. And we really appreciate you. And again, stay safe, everyone. And again, if you have any questions or would like to ask a question, please feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat, and we will go ahead and take some answers for you. Thank you, everybody.
Time flies when you're having a ball.
It does. It does. Thank you guys so much for joining
and
for our attendees. I know, it was great. It was really good. Thank you guys.
I don't want it to end. Do we have to have it end? Why does it have to end?
If they get off, we're going to stay on.
Is there an after party that maybe we got invited to? Maybe
stay on until everyone gets off.
Yes, we can stay on until it ends us, right, Kelsey?
Closes, yeah.
I think so.
People
are asking. We are recording this, and we will have the recording available to everybody, and it'll also be on LinkedIn. We'll have it for all the organizations. So yeah, where's the after party?
Someone noted, hope to see you at the grad luncheon. FBI has a luncheon for women at there. I will definitely be there. Cindy Reed, yes, absolutely. And that's a great thing the FBINA does also. They have that luncheon just for women. It's offsite, but they need to incorporate. NA, if they're listening, they need to incorporate a whole lot more programs for women as part of the conference. So,
okay, great.
Yeah.
Oh, 68 people are holding on. We got it.
They want to know where the after party is. They keep saying, "Where's the after party?"
I know. Look what I started.
One thing
It's
I
at
did,
Sergeant Standard's house. She's
Yeah,
got it.
oh.
She works
What-
here.
I know one thing we are proud of, Tina, to mention on the NOLI Executive Board. There are 4 FBI National Associate grads, which is very difficult to have at this time. So we're proud of that. Besides Julie, we have Sharice Gauze from North Miami Police Department. She's chief there. She's our secretary. And we have Lynette Falzone. She's our second BP. She's an NA grad as well. So very proud for Nolly to have that.
That's excellent.
And a few of my 280 COVID NA grads were on our Zoom, so thanks for supporting your sister.
And thank you,
I always
Meg.
love saying 280 COVID class because we were a special group
Aw.
and we had our own rooms. Just gonna put that out there in the
Oh,
Jefferson
yeah.
Tower.
No roommates.
No roommates.
So wrong.
No roommate. No roommates. I think we had the largest female group too because our group was smaller. It was like 100, and, I think 60 or 130, and we had like 30 women. So we
Yeah.
actually had, I don't know, somebody should find out if we were the largest percentage of women at the NA. I know that Gina had a bigger group, but you had 230, so.
Yeah, we had like 230, 260, but we only had like 22 women.
Mhm.
So
Very
we were
similar.
close. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very similar to mine.
All right, everybody. Well, have a wonderful
All
rest
right.
of your day.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.